The studio was alive with a hum of anticipation, the kind that only a live broadcast could generate. Cameras rolled, capturing every angle of the iconic desk where the host sat, the audience buzzing with the excitement of being part of a show that promised entertainment and controversy in equal measure. On this particular morning, the energy felt different, charged, almost electric. The guest of the day was Jane Fonda, the legendary actress, activist, and cultural icon whose career spanned decades and whose opinions had often sparked both admiration and debate. Across from her sat Joy Behar, a seasoned television personality known for her biting wit and sharp tongue, a woman who had mastered the art of provocation on live television. The stage was set for something extraordinary, though few in the audience could predict just how intense it would become. Lorraine Kelly's introduction set the tone, warm and professional, highlighting Jane's illustrious career, her activism, and her influence in Hollywood and beyond. The applause from the audience was polite but genuine, a recognition of the stature and gravitas Jane brought to the studio. Jane's presence was commanding yet serene, she exuded confidence without a hint of arrogance. Her eyes scanned the audience briefly before settling on Joy, a subtle smile playing on her lips, signaling that she was prepared for whatever challenges the conversation might bring. Joy opened the dialogue with her characteristic energy, leaning forward slightly and flashing a smile that suggested both charm and calculated mischief. "Jane, you've always been outspoken, fearless even. Do you ever worry that being so direct can ruffle feathers, especially when you're on shows like this?" Her tone was polite on the surface, but the question carried a subtle edge, a challenge carefully wrapped in civility. The audience stirred, sensing that the exchange was about to take on a more charged energy than a typical celebrity interview. Jane's response was calm, her voice measured, carrying the weight of someone who had spent a lifetime navigating public scrutiny. "Joy, I've spent decades speaking out on issues that matter to me. If my words ruffle feathers, that's not a problem I shy away from, it's a problem that people need to face." Her eyes locked on Joy's, unwavering, and the audience responded with a ripple of murmurs, clearly captivated by her composure and directness. Joy's smile remained, but it tightened just slightly. She leaned back, adjusting her posture as if preparing for a verbal counterstrike. "I suppose some might say that being that candid is brave, but don't you worry about how your words might be perceived? Especially by people who expect a certain diplomacy." Jane's expression remained serene, but the sharpness in her reply cut through the pretense of the question. "Joy, there's a big difference between diplomacy and tiptoeing around the truth to avoid discomfort. I'm not here to soften my words for anyone's comfort. Honesty isn't about pleasing people, it's about integrity and speaking from the heart." The audience responded audibly, a mixture of approval and quiet astonishment. The subtle shift in dynamics was palpable. Cameras lingered on Joy's expressions, the slight furrowing of her brow, the brief tightening of her lips, the almost imperceptible flush that suggested the first cracks in her usually confident demeanor. Lorraine Kelly maintained her professional composure, her eyes flicking between the two women, aware that the energy in the studio had escalated beyond ordinary banter. Joy tried to regain her footing, leaning forward and softening her tone. "I'm just saying, Jane, in a setting like this, sometimes it's important to consider the audience. People watch daytime television for conversation, for insight, but also for a kind of comfort, don't you think?" Jane tilted her head slightly, her calm gaze fixed on Joy. Her voice was polite, yet firm, the edge unmistakable. "Joy, if comfort is the only thing people seek, then perhaps the conversation isn't meaningful enough. People need to hear things that challenge them, that make them think. That's what real dialogue is about, not just keeping everyone at ease." The audience murmured in agreement, leaning forward in their seats. The cameras caught every micro-expression, Joy's subtle eye movements, the tightness in her shoulders, the way her hands clasped briefly before resting on the desk again. Jane's composure was magnetic, every word she spoke reinforced her authority and confidence. Joy's attempts to assert dominance in the conversation were faltering under the weight of Jane's calm, deliberate responses. Attempting humor to deflect some of the tension, Joy tried a light-hearted comment about Jane's decades in the public eye. "I guess after all these years, you've got a little armor built up, haven't you? You can take a few jabs from people like me." Her laugh was slightly forced, a touch too high-pitched, betraying the subtle discomfort she felt. Jane's response was direct but gracious, the kind of statement that landed like a quiet, precise strike. "Joy, it's not about taking jabs or enduring criticism. It's about standing firm in what you believe and not letting the opinions of others dictate your words or actions. That's the kind of resilience that matters, not the ability to dodge clever quips. The audience responded with stronger applause, some clapping, others murmuring in admiration. Lorraine Kelly's expression remained professional, though a flicker of recognition passed across her face. She, too, could see the dynamic clearly. Jane had taken control of the conversation without raising her voice, without theatrics, simply through confidence, poise, and authority. Joy's usual tactics, quick comebacks, humor, and sarcasm, were faltering against the wall of calm certainty Jane projected. Joy tried once more to assert control, leaning in slightly, her tone sharper now. I suppose some viewers might think that being blunt is a little intimidating. Do you ever feel that people misunderstand your intentions? The tension in the studio lingered as the cameras returned from the commercial break. The audience, still buzzing from the first segment, whispered among themselves, exchanging glances and murmurs that conveyed a mix of excitement, astonishment, and anticipation. Many leaned forward in their seats, eager to see how the remainder of the conversation would unfold. The air was charged, every rustle of clothing, every shuffle of papers, magnified by the heightened energy. Jane Fonda sat poised, serene and composed, her posture perfect, her calm gaze sweeping the audience before resting on Joy Behar across the desk. Joy's signature smile was now slightly forced, her usual confidence tempered by the subtle cracks in her composure that had begun to appear during the first segment. Lorraine Kelly, ever the professional mediator, leaned slightly forward, her hands resting lightly on the desk, ready to moderate if the tension escalated further. Joy attempted to regain some semblance of control, launching into a question about Jane's recent projects and charitable endeavors. Jane, you've been busy with so many initiatives lately. How do you manage to juggle your career and activism while maintaining such a public presence? Her tone was lighter now, meant to redirect the conversation, but the audience could detect a strain beneath the surface, a hint that this question was as much about regaining dominance as genuine curiosity. Jane's response was measured, her voice calm and deliberate. Joy, the key isn't in juggling, it's in prioritizing. I focus on what matters most, on where I can have the greatest impact. Whether it's a film, a campaign, or a cause, I approach it with honesty and dedication. Public presence is simply a tool, not the goal. Her words resonated with clarity and authority, and the audience responded with polite applause, a subtle yet unmistakable acknowledgement of her composure and wisdom. Joy pressed on, attempting to challenge Jane's approach indirectly. But don't you think sometimes that honesty can alienate people? Some viewers might expect a softer approach, a little more diplomacy on sensitive topics. Jane's gaze held Joy's, unwavering, her tone calm but firm. Joy, there's a world of difference between diplomacy and compromising your integrity. I won't dilute my truth to make others comfortable. If honesty makes someone uncomfortable, that's their reaction to manage, not mine. I speak for what I believe is right, not for approval. The audience reacted audibly this time, their applause mingling with murmurs of agreement. Cameras captured every nuanced expression. The subtle furrow in Joy's brow, the brief tightening of her jaw, the way her hands clasped together momentarily before resting again on the desk. Jane's serene composure contrasted sharply with Joy's increasingly strained attempt to maintain authority. Lorraine Kelly, maintaining her professional demeanor, subtly reinforced the narrative by redirecting attention to Jane's insight. It's clear that Jane's approach to honesty and authenticity resonates strongly with the audience, she said, her tone measured yet appreciative. Joy's attempts to regain the upper hand began to falter. She leaned in slightly, trying to inject humor to soften the tension. I guess some people might find it intimidating when someone is that direct and unflinching, don't you think? Her laugh was brief, almost nervous, and the audience responded more to Jane's poised presence than to Joy's humor. Jane's reply was precise, calm, and undeniably authoritative. Intimidating, perhaps, but I'd rather be intimidating for speaking truth than being admired for carefully crafted niceties that avoid substance. Real conversation challenges people, it doesn't just entertain them. The applause was immediate and sustained, some audience members standing, others leaning forward in visible engagement. The cameras shifted focus, capturing the subtle dynamics, Joy's forced smile, her increasingly defensive posture, her attempts at eye contact that were met with Jane's unwavering calm. Every attempt Joy made to assert control or redirect the discussion was deftly neutralized by Jane's composed authority. The studio atmosphere had shifted entirely, the balance of power now clearly favored Jane. Joy tried once more, leaning in with a sharper tone, attempting to assert a point about audience perception and the delicate balance of live television. I just think, Jane, in this environment, there's an expectation to be approachable, to balance honesty with sensitivity. Otherwise, people might feel attacked rather than informed. Jane's eyes softened slightly, but her words were firm and measured, cutting through any pretense. Joy, I understand that some may perceive directness as aggression, but that's a reflection of their expectations, not my intent. Being truthful is not about attacking anyone, it's about communicating clearly and authentically. I won't compromise that clarity for comfort or approval. The audience responded with applause again,